Hey guys, this is Ashley Shepard here in Maryville, Tennessee, and I have got Jamie Young here, and we are so excited to bring you week 1 of What Women Fear. Now, maybe you joined us when we did the Seamless Bible Study in September. Maybe you did Proverbs with us in December, or maybe this is your first study that you have come along with this amazing, beautifully designed community. But we just want to welcome you. We are so excited about this book. We feel like the Lord has brought this book to all of us to read together as a community. And I don't know about you, but it's really hard to stop at chapter 2, right? This book is incredible. And before we get started, I'm going to go over the intro. Jamie's going to talk about chapter 1, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about chapter 2, but we're just going to give you kind of
9 o'clock.
What's on our hearts, something that kind of jumped out of us. And we want to start some discussions on the Facebook page. But we just want to get you guys thinking as you read through this book about some fears maybe that you've had from childhood. If you've read parts of this book, Angie Smith is very transparent about some of the struggles that she had as a child and fears and anxieties. Maybe that's you. Maybe it's, maybe you've got fears and anxieties later on in life. Or maybe you don't have a lot of fears and you're good with that, but the Lord has called you to this book to minister to someone else down the road. You never know the reason behind something, but I can tell you the reason why He has brought us together, and that is to give us a voice. If you read the intro on page 2, I love when she says this. We learn that Satan doesn't have to force us to do anything sinful. He merely needs to plant a seed of doubt and let us tangle ourselves up in it. I believe that Satan's way of oppressing women is to make them feel insecure, or to make them feel less than, or give them an anxiety that, or a comparison. Well, we're not this person, and well, I can't do it like that person. And that's how he oppresses what God has made in us and what His ultimate purpose is through us. It can't get done if we're so consumed with fears of, what if they make fun of me, or fears of what if I succeed, or fears of what if I fail. So many times we have so many of those fears. Well, that is Satan's seed of doubt. On page 3, she says, never once did Satan tell Eve in the garden. He never told her to eat the fruit. All he did was ask her if she was sure. You see, when God had told them not to eat of this certain tree, and then Satan, he didn't say, oh, well, God didn't say that. You're good to go. All he did was he said, are you sure that's what God said? And he asked her a question. Well, that seed of doubt planted in her, and we know what ultimately happened, right? She ate it. She joined her little buddy in there, Adam, to come take a bite. And that is where that sinful nature that we all have came from. And I don't think it's a coincidence that Satan has been in my mind. I wake up and he's like, who do you think you are? Leading 13,000 women in a Bible study? Who do you think you are? Those seeds of doubt happen all the time to, I think, all of us. But here's what I love about our community is that I feel like the Lord has brought us together to give us a voice, to lock arms together, because we know that fear hates community. Well, we are about to slap some fear in the face. I love what she says on page 4. Every single fear comes from the lie spoken by the enemy in a garden designed to be a haven. But guess what? On page 13, this is so true. We have a real enemy who thrives on our silence. Well, we are being silent no more, because we are 13,000 of us. And you know what? Maybe not all of you have gotten the book and you're just watching the videos for fun to see what this is all about. But I hope, even if you're not reading this book, I hope that you really dive into what fears and anxieties do you have that God can help you overcome, that God can give you a voice for, because we have an enemy that wants us to be silent. But we're locking arms together, and I love that image of 13,000 women waking up on a Monday morning or Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday, waking up, their feet hit the ground, their hands are grabbing this book and they're grabbing their Bible and they are in the Word and they are learning how to overcome things that have bogged us down from our true purpose in life and has kept us away from a true relationship with Jesus Christ. So that is what I envision Beautifully Designed to be, and it gets me fired up every time I think about it. So I'm excited about Jamie. She's going to dive into some things that were on her heart for chapter 1, and we'll go from there.
Hey girls, I'm so excited to be back. Ashley and I have anxiously awaited getting to delve into these chapters. And so obviously in preparation, we're ahead. So getting to go back to prepare for chapter 1 today was so exciting for me because I had forgotten where it all started. And so when I looked back and I realized I was going to get to go over the chapter that is based on the fear of what if, I was excited to do that because as a woman who has such a huge circle of women friends in my life, so many women that I do life with, it is so apparent in so many situations that we deal with that all of my women friends have these huge fears that relate to what might happen or what could happen or what if something doesn't happen. And so we get so caught up in that. So I'm super thrilled to just take a few minutes tonight to get to go through this chapter 1 with you over the fear of what if. And it opens up with the story of Abraham and Sarah. And it talks about how they did not have the patience nor the belief in God's promises to them that they would have their own son because they were so old they thought there was no way that God could be right about them birthing a son. So they took matters into their own hands. And when they did that, when they chose to override God, that resulted in an entirely different path that began to unfold before them than what God really had in mind for them. So by taking the reins and dragging Abraham and Hagar into her plans, Sarah started a domino effect that drastically altered the plans that God had for each of them. It brought pain and distress into their lives, but it did not change God's ultimate plan for the son of Abraham and Sarah. His will was still executed. It was just a tad messier because Sarah was so consumed with the what ifs of it all. What if God was wrong? What if I never get pregnant? What if God made a mistake in telling us that we would have our own son? So those were ongoing whispers of doubt that were in Sarah's ear, and they were causing her not to trust God's promise. Just like Ashley talked about with Satan whispering into Eve's ear. You know, he has his ways of working in. And he whispered to Sarah that possibly God was wrong. And he whispered that if she wanted to have her desires come to life, to fruition, that she needed to be in control. Control. That's one word that I think we can all relate to because as ladies, as moms, as wives, as daughters, we want to be in control of things. It's like part of our DNA, right? And so what do we tend to do when our life feels like it's spinning out of control and we can't make anything happen the way we want it to happen? Are we good about turning to God and seeking His will? Or are you more likely to jump in with both feet, anchor into the storm, and try to fight it like a raging bull? Page 23 in chapter 1 talks about how with all of our fears, the central issue is realizing that you are not in control. And once we realize that we cannot control the storm, what happens to us? We start to have all these fears, and these fears just spiral us out of control. We start thinking about all the what ifs that might take place. And I can guarantee you there are thousands of women in this study. And between each of us, if all of us came together, we could probably make a list of the what ifs we all have, and that would probably stretch across the United States from California to New York and back again. So what are the what ifs in your life that consume you, that place you into fear and doubt mode and start to increase your anxiety and basically just make you a basket case? You know, for me personally, it's having a husband who's in law enforcement. There's something about him walking out that door every day with a Kevlar vest and a gun strapped to his side that stirs up the what ifs in me every single time. What if this is the last time I see his face? What if this is the last time I hear his voice? What if I get a phone call today that he's been shot? What if his unit is involved in a crisis situation? What if, what if, what if? And it can be paralyzing. So paralyzing that if he doesn't answer his text message within 2 seconds, I'm calling him to find out what's wrong. Or my teenage daughter, I mean, she can sure bring some what ifs flying into my heart. What if she gets into a wreck with her friends? What if she makes a bad choice that alters the rest of her life before her life even gets good? What if she hangs out with the wrong crowd? What if I didn't teach her all the important things? What if all of those choices I made when she was small have been detrimental to who she is today? What if she doesn't go to college? What if she never gets a good job? I could ramble off a million what ifs that are related to my babies, because nothing grows fear in the heart of a mother like her babies growing up and trying to navigate this world. But I can sit here and worry about these things and a gazillion other things all day long, and it will not prevent them from happening or change anything I did in the past. I can't spend my life looking backwards with regret or projecting fear into my future, and neither can you. What we can do is arm ourselves with the armor of God. We can turn it over to Him. We can pray for His will and recognize the whispers of Satan in our life and understand that is in these moments of fear, it's in this out of control cycle of what ifs that Satan worms his way into our lives, and he sets up residence in our four walls like an unwelcomed guest. He plants himself at our dinner table and in our cars, in our conversations, every activity, every dream we talk about. He sneaks in there and he encourages the what ifs. But we have to take Satan captive by handing him over to Jesus to deal with. We just have to pray that God is going to give us the strength and believe that He will carry our fears. Can never say that word. He will carry our fears and our burdens in a way that only God can. I have to learn and make a continued effort every single day to hand my fears over of losing my husband to him. I have to hand over my fears of navigating parenting a teenage girl, because I cannot let the what ifs drown me, because that will hold me captive. So when chapter 1 delves into Hagar's story of sitting by the well on page 26, I am reminded that God knows my fears. He knows the weight that I carry. And while He doesn't promise that all will be well, no pun intended, He promises that He will be with me and He will show me the way. He may not change my circumstances, but He is able to open my eyes to what He has in store for me amongst and despite my circumstances. There's no amount of worry or fear that I can harbor that can or will change His plans for me and my destiny, for whatever He has predetermined for me. But if I surrender to my fear, I can become blinded, like Hagar, to what He has for me and for my family. And so we sometimes stumble into a door that God has shut for us, and we cry out and we beg for Him to open it. We cannot understand why God will not let us in that door that we so desperately want to enter. What if that's the door for us? What if it's just stuck and we can't get it open? God has a plan. I'll tell you a story. I remember very vividly being 4 years old and my daddy locked me out of their bedroom one night. When my mama watches this video, she's going to get a kick out of me sharing this story, because it's something I've talked about for years and years and never forgotten and thrown up in their face a few times. Because when I was 4, I slept in their bed every single night, and they kept guiding me toward my own room and my own bed. But somehow I ended up in their bed every night anyway, because I wouldn't listen. There really wasn't room for me in their bed, but I felt safe there. And so I wanted to stay where I felt safe. So I remember that night walking up to their door and turning the knob only to find that it wouldn't open. So I banged on it, and my daddy told me to go get in the bed. I sobbed and I begged, and he sent me on my way every time. He wouldn't open the door. He just talked to me from the other side and told me to get to my room. I went back to my room. I grabbed my pillow and my stuffed Smurf doll that I had just gotten for Christmas. I threw both of them down in front of that closed door, and then I begged and I banged some more, and he never opened it up. I fell asleep outside their door that night, and for several more nights to follow. I remember just not at that age, I just couldn't comprehend. I just did not understand why my daddy would do that to me. He locked me out. He would not open the door where I knew I was supposed to be. My room was foreign territory at night. It was dark and quiet. It was lonely and scary. I mean, what if the boogeyman got me? What if my parents didn't want me to be with them anymore? That couldn't be right. After several nights of not getting in, I finally gave up because I really didn't know what else to do. And I turned around and I went back to my room, to the only other door I knew. And it was scary. It was scary to go down the dark, long hallway. And it was scary to walk into that door. But after just a short while, I loved sleeping in my own bed in my own room. I had all my pillows and all my stuffed animals. And pretty soon, I forgot all about what was behind that other door. I had it going on in my room behind my own door. And my daddy knew what he was doing the whole time. He was trying to teach me to be a big girl. He was forcing me to get over my fear of my own room. And he had to close that door and lock me out. Otherwise, I would have slept in there with him until I was 12. And I would have never realized my own independence and ability to get myself to sleep. And today, my mom and I laugh at that traumatic experience that happened all those years ago. And then I make sure to let her know that it's all their fault, that my 9-year-old still sleeps with me, because I could never traumatize her the way that they did to me. Kidding, sort of. You know, sometimes God shuts doors to teach us something, or to force us to turn and walk down another path to the door that holds His plan for us. And it's easy to question the what if in that. But in the journey of seeking God's will for us, we are able to grow and we can become who He intends for us to be. So quit sitting in front of that closed door with your pillow and your Smurf doll, crying and begging to be let in. And start looking for the open door that God has for you. Because He isn't shutting you out because He enjoys watching you suffer or hearing you cry or beg. He's trying to get you to rise up and walk out looking for the door that's intended for you. God is faithful and He is good. And just as Angie says in closing of chapter 1, keep your eyes open to what God is doing, always confident that the Lord of Hagar loves you just as He loved her. Pray for God to open your eyes to the well of life that He has for you, and stop living in the fear of what could be and seek out God's will, knowing that it may not be the circumstances in your life that's going to change, but the awareness of your circumstances you're in so that you can handle them the way God desires, so that you can see the gifts He has for you. Just opening your eyes to what He has for you. Listen to His voice and walk in the direction that He's calling you. And in order to know what direction that is, you must go to Him. You have to be quiet and ask Him to reveal it to you, to take your blinders off, to let you see. Because you can't hear His directions for you if you're camped out outside the closed door, banging, hollering, and crying. Be still, be quiet, and listen. And be very careful, so careful, to not confuse the whispers of Satan with the almighty voice of God. God's voice will always be convicting and never, ever condemning. He doesn't make you feel guilty or criticize you. If that's how you feel, that's not God. If you feel under attack, worthless, or unlovable, if you hear words of criticism and doubt, that is the devil himself, because God works very differently. He speaks to you to convict you. He seeks to just correct you on the things in your life that need a change, and it's motivated by His love. And because he loves you, he gently nudges you to say, you just might need to work on this. He never condemns or seeks to make you feel worthless or guilty. It's my prayer for each of you ladies that you begin to recognize your fears for exactly what they are. It doesn't mean they're not important or that they don't matter, but we're all attacking this book so that we can attack our fears. We're coming together to do that. I pray that you're going to quit worrying over the what ifs in your life and the closed doors in your life, and what if you had been able to get in that door, or what if I chose the wrong door. But I want you to just reach out to God and just choose him over your worries, believing with your entire heart that he is working on your behalf, closing the wrong doors, and he's opening the right ones. In true Angie Smith style, I wanted to end tonight on an A.W. Tozer quote. And it says, outside of the will of God, there is nothing I fear. And in the will of God, I messed that up. That's right. Outside of the will of God, let me back up. Outside of the will of God, there is nothing I want. And in the will of God, there is nothing I fear. I pray that you stay in tune to his will for you so that you can lay those fears down and walk with him. I'm going to turn this over to Ashley because she has some great stuff to talk to you guys about chapter 2.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jamie. And I needed to hear that myself because I have lots of fears of the what if, and I had starting as a little girl, kind of like Angie. So thank you for that. That definitely blessed me too. So going on into chapter 2, which is the fear of rejection, abandonment, or betrayal. And Angie Smith goes very quickly into stories about Job. You know, Job lost everything, his family, his kids, his land. He lost everything. And he questioned God because he didn't know where to turn or what to do. And then she goes into the story of Leah, how Jacob, Leah's dad, Laban, accidentally snuck Leah in to lay with Jacob instead of Rachel, and how she was second best to her sister. You know, she wasn't pretty like her sister. She wasn't chosen by Jacob or really by anybody. She always probably felt less than or second to. Excuse me. I'm still battling bronchitis, so excuse me. But when she was describing the story of Leah, my heart started kind of racing a little bit. Because I think we've all felt that way in some form or fashion in our life. Maybe it was when we were little, when Angie Smith was going through her ballet story of how those, basically, I call them mean girls, made her go to this ballet studio and dance and make a fool of her, all for the sake to laugh at her. And, how that made her feel at such a young age. It made me think of, things that happened when I was a little kid. I remember coming home telling Mom, I have to stop wearing my sister's hand-me-downs. Like, I need to start going out and buying the cool kid clothes. And I remember having this battle of, people don't see me the way I want people to see me. They're not seeing me like, they see the cool person or the popular person. And I remember even at a young age, my mom, we don't find our worth in that. And so that question of where do we find our worth really kind of kept coming to mind when I was reading chapter 2. Where do we find our worth? Sometimes as a teenager, as Jamie was talking about raising a teenage daughter, I can't even imagine. I can't even go there in this society right now. My boys are really little, 7 and 4, so thankfully I don't have to. But as teenage kids grow up, all the things they have to keep up with, all the material things they have to have, they all have to have an iPhone, and they have to have this, and if they, comparable to that. But I think as women, even adult women, let me ask you a question. If you ever felt rejection because you chose not to have kids, have you ever felt rejected or abandoned by, your friends or society because you chose to bottle feed instead of breastfeed, right? What about, have you ever felt rejected or betrayed because you chose to be a stay-at-home mom or you chose to be a work work-at-home mom. So, or work-from-home mom. So I really, the media as women, it's really hard because we're always put in categories. And for whether you're little, teenager, you're adults, or whether you're in your 60s or 70s or 80s, we're always put in categories. Oh, you're a boy mom. You're raising boys. Oh, you're a girl mom. Here's the reality. In some form or fashion, we're rejected by another group, right? And social media is horrible, and they want us, I really feel like the enemy has his hand on social media because he wants to separate women in 500 categories. And what God is trying to do is wrap his arms around his daughters, and he is saying, you are mine. I beautifully designed you. I knew you before you were in your mother's womb. He knows the number of hairs on our head. He knows every door we're going to go through, every door that we refuse to because of our fears. He knows who is going to abandon us, who is going to reject us. He knows if our husband is going to leave us. He knows if our kids are going to go astray when they get older. He knows all of those things. He created us. So instead of finding our worth and our value in other people's opinions and social media and, oh, we didn't do this or we did do that. Well, we're part of this crew. No, we're part of this crew. No, we are daughters of a king who created us. And I truly believe that if we can make Christ's voice louder than all of those voices of rejection in our past, all of those voices of abandonment we feel every single day because we chose something different or we are different. I love being different. I love this topic. My husband makes fun of me because I force hug people. Here's the truth about Ashley Shepherd. I want everybody to like me. It stresses me out to think someone is mad at me or someone doesn't like me or they've said something bad about me. I literally want to crumble and cry. And my husband makes fun of me because he says when I meet someone or I see somebody out, I literally will force my hand around them and I will make them hug me. I want people to feel comfortable around me. And it's a fear of I want to make sure everybody likes me. Well, I'm looking for worth in what people think about me. And so as you think about, and maybe I encourage you through the rest of this book, go back to chapter 1. What are some of your what if fears that you have? What if fears do you have in your life right now? Well, what fear of rejection or abandonment or betrayal do you have in your life right now? Is it something like me where you want everyone to like you and so sometimes you base your decisions on that, or maybe you force hug people? Could be awkward, but I don't care. I do it anyway. But maybe you're sick and tired of being labeled something and you've got all these labels. You're this and you didn't do this and you're this and you work from home, you stay at home and you did not breastfeed. Right? No, you need to view yourself the way Christ views you. And that is beautifully designed for a purpose, for his purpose. And so I love on page 43 when Job was all up in arms for losing everything and God asks this one question. But Job, where were you when I laid the earth's foundation? Where were you? I don't think it's really sarcasm, but I love God's way of saying, it's okay, Job, I've got this. I've laid the foundation. I've got this. So as you deal with some of your fears here of rejection, it's going to be hard. I literally had tears in my eyes when I was reading the story of her in the ballet and I was picturing myself experiencing it. Then it made me think of, past things. And so the reality is this is real things for women. And so I want you to really ask yourself, and this is one thing as women we can rise up to overcome. When we have that fear of rejection, or we start to put our self-worth in someone else's opinion of us or what people think about us, go back to these words, God's words. But where were you, Ashley Shepherd, when I laid the earth's foundation? I've got this. Let God have this. So on page 45, I'm going to finish with her prayer because I think her prayer is very appropriate, ending out the fear of rejection. And that is, thank you, Lord. You are not unaware of what it feels like to be persecuted, rejected, and betrayed. I am so grateful for a God who stooped low enough to feel the way humanity aches. You remind me constantly that despite what my mirror says, what my friends say, or what my neighbors choose to think about me, I was worth you dreaming me up. May I live a life worthy of the King who spoke me into being, eyes fixed on him, heart steadfast in love, and always aware of his presence. In the times I feel forgotten and discarded, you are the joy of my life, Jesus. May it always be so. And so I encourage you to get a notebook or note cards to write down some of these fears that the Lord may rise up in you. And as they rise up, I pray you give them back to him. And God reminds you gently, but where were you when I laid the foundation? Because I've got this. So on Monday, start reading chapter 3, which is fear of being found out. In chapter 4, which is the fear of failure. Oh, this one really stabbed me in the heart. So read chapters 3 and 4 starting on Monday, and then Jamie and I will start. We will post the recording on Thursday morning. So I am really excited to make the announcement that we have coming up. So I want everyone to mark their calendars for April the 2nd. Because on April the 2nd, Angie Smith has agreed to come to East Tennessee. She is coming to our church here in Maryville, East Maryville Baptist Church on April 2nd. It is going to be a night of worship, a night for you. She is going to come pour into you, and so many of you love her humor. You love her writing style. She has a heart for God, but she also has a heart for being real. And she is coming for us. And so please mark down the date, April 2nd. In about a week or so, we will post a way to secure your ticket that also gives you details with the address and different things like that, so you can completely plan. So please make sure that you mark down April 2nd. And I don't know where you are in the country, but I want you to be in East Tennessee on that night. We have prepared the way for you, for her to come, to pour into you. Like I said, you're going to love to hear her in person, and she wants to meet you. She is so excited to meet each of you in this beautifully designed community. We've wrapped our arms around her already so many times, just loving on her words and loving on her heart. And now we can physically hug her and thank her for everything she's done for us and let her pour into us. So details to come, but right now we do want you to save the date for April 2nd. We are so excited about what God is continuing to do with this ministry. We don't think it's by an accident. We believe that he's brought us all together to bring glory to him, to bring his daughters close, because it's time to rise up. It's time to rise above the fear, rise above anxiety, and to start living our beautifully designed life on purpose because he created it. We love each of you, and we will see you next week, and we will start some discussion threads on the Facebook page, so we would love for you guys to stay engaged on that. Remember about the prayer forum on there, and gather your accountability partner, and be real about the fears that you have. And remember, where were you when he laid the foundation? Be blessed.